Every time you meet someone, they are already reading you. Your words, your expressions, even the slightest hesitation in your voice, it all reveals more than you think. But what if you could reverse the game? What if you had the power to see through people, to understand their thoughts before they even spoke? This is not magic. It is not a supernatural gift. It is a science, a hidden art mastered by experts who walk among us, unnoticed, yet always in control. Their eyes scan movements, their minds decode emotions, and in mere seconds, they know exactly what you are thinking. Tonight, we unlock that door. 5 secret techniques used by the world's most skilled observers will be revealed. But be warned, once you see the world through this lens, there is no going back. For centuries, the ability to read minds has been seen as something out of reach, reserved for mystics, illusionists, or those with supernatural powers. But the truth is far stranger. Mind reading is not about telepathy. It is about perception. It is about understanding the signals people do not even realize they are giving away. This skill is not just useful, it is a weapon. Imagine knowing whether someone is lying before they even finish their sentence. Imagine sensing fear, attraction, or hesitation just by watching a person's breathing pattern. The world's greatest leaders, con artists, negotiators, and spies have all mastered this art in one way or another. And whether you realize it or not, these techniques are being used on you every single day. In the 1950s, during the height of the Cold War, the CIA launched a covert project known as MK Ultra. It was a classified experiment to study mind control, manipulation, and psychological influence. Some of the world's best scientists and interrogators were brought in, and their research uncovered shocking truths about human behavior. They found that people could be subtly guided, their decisions shaped by cues they were never aware of. One of the key discoveries was that the human mind is not as private as we believe. Every emotion, every thought leaves traces, small yet powerful clues in body language, speech patterns, and unconscious reactions. Those who understood these clues could anticipate their opponent's next move, extract secrets without force, and control situations without ever raising suspicion. While the experiments of MK Ultra remain shrouded in secrecy, the principles they uncovered did not die with the program. Instead, they were refined, studied, and used in fields ranging from intelligence operations to high-stakes business negotiations. Today, those same principles can be used by anyone who understands them. The ability to read people is not just about gaining an advantage, it is about survival. In a world where deception is everywhere, being able to detect hidden motives can mean the difference between success and failure, trust and betrayal. Consider this. Have you ever met someone who just felt off? Maybe their words were reassuring, but something in their eyes or their tone made you uneasy. That was your subconscious picking up on microexpressions, tiny involuntary facial movements that reveal a person's true emotions. Most people ignore these signals, but those who learn to interpret them can uncover the truth behind any mask. This knowledge can change everything: your relationships, your career, even your safety. Whether you want to negotiate better, avoid manipulation, or simply understand the people around you on a deeper level, learning these techniques will give you an edge most people will never have. Once you see the world through this lens, you cannot unsee it. You will notice when people lie. You will recognize fear, attraction, and deceit in ways others cannot. This is a power that can be used to protect or to control, but knowledge once gained cannot be forgotten. The question is, are you ready to step into the shadows and uncover the hidden language of the mind? Because once we begin, there is no turning back. Now let us begin. The first technique is one of the most powerful, yet it is something people reveal without even realizing it. The idea of mind reading has always been wrapped in mysticism and illusion. People believe it belongs to stage magicians or fantasy novels, something unreal and beyond human capability. But this misunderstanding is not an accident. It has been carefully cultivated. Those who truly understand the mechanics of the human mind rarely share their knowledge openly. They do not want the world to know how easily thoughts can be read, how effortlessly emotions can be manipulated. Throughout history, the most powerful individuals have relied on psychological mastery rather than brute force. From ancient rulers to modern politicians, those who understand human nature have always held an unshakable grip on society. But the real question is, why is this knowledge not widespread? Why are we never taught how to read the subtle cues that reveal a person's true intentions? One reason is simple: control. A society that does not understand how influence works is easier to manipulate. Think about how easily people are swayed by political speeches, marketing campaigns, or even the charm of a stranger. Most do not realize that every word, every gesture, every pause in conversation is carefully calculated to create a specific effect. If everyone had the ability to see through these techniques, manipulation would lose its power. Scientific research has repeatedly shown that humans communicate far more through nonverbal signals than spoken words. In 1967, psychologist Albert Mehrabian conducted a study that revealed 93% of communication is nonverbal. Body language, tone, and microexpressions. Yet despite this overwhelming evidence, traditional education focuses almost exclusively on verbal communication. Schools teach grammar, vocabulary, and speech skills, but they rarely discuss how to detect deceit, how to sense hidden emotions, or how to read between the lines of what is being said. This is not a coincidence. The more unaware people are of these psychological signals, the easier they are to deceive. Governments, corporations, and those in power have no interest in educating the masses about these techniques. A population that understands manipulation tactics is harder to control, harder to sell to, and harder to influence. Consider the case of Darren Brown, a world-renowned mentalist who has demonstrated time and again how easily the mind can be read and influenced. In one experiment, he walked up to a stranger and, through nothing but carefully chosen words and subtle gestures, convinced them to hand over their wallet without question. No force, no threats, just pure psychological manipulation. If a trained observer can do this in a matter of minutes, imagine what skilled politicians, cult leaders, or corporate executives can achieve over months or years. The truth is, mind reading is not about mystical powers. It is about understanding human nature on a deeper level. It is about recognizing patterns, decoding hidden messages, and seeing beyond the surface. But once you begin to notice these things, the world changes. You realize that most interactions are not as honest as they seem. You see the invisible strings pulling the decisions of those around you. And the most unsettling part, you begin to wonder, who has been reading your mind all along? Now let us move deeper. Knowing that mind reading is real and hidden in plain sight, the next question is, how is it used against us? And more importantly, how can we turn the tables? The ability to read and influence minds is not just a secret of illusionists or intelligence agencies. It is deeply embedded in everyday life. You encounter it in advertisements, political campaigns, corporate boardrooms, and even personal relationships. The reason these techniques are so effective is that most people are completely unaware of them. When manipulation is invisible, it feels like free will. Take marketing, for example. Companies spend billions of dollars studying human behavior to predict and control consumer choices. Have you ever noticed how luxury brands rarely try to sell their products in the traditional sense? Instead, they create an illusion, associating their brand with exclusivity, power, or desire. They do not convince you logically, they bypass logic altogether, targeting your emotions. A classic example is the decoy effect. When a company wants to push a high-priced product, they introduce a slightly less expensive but clearly inferior version. The human mind, wired for comparison, suddenly sees the expensive option as the better deal. You think you made a smart choice. In reality, you were guided to that decision without realizing it. Politics operates on the same principles. During elections, candidates do not just deliver speeches. They create psychological narratives. They use repetition to implant ideas, fear to trigger compliance, and carefully crafted language to make falsehoods feel like truth. One of the most famous political strategies is the foot-in-the-door technique, getting people to agree to something small before escalating to something bigger. A leader may start with a harmless policy change, slowly conditioning the public to accept more extreme measures. By the time the real agenda is revealed, resistance feels unnatural. These same tactics seep into relationships as well. Manipulative individuals, whether in friendships, business, or romance, use psychological loopholes to gain control. One of the most sinister techniques is gaslighting, a strategy where a manipulator makes their victim doubt their own reality. A person may insist that events did not happen the way the victim remembers, subtly eroding their confidence in their own judgment. Over time, the victim becomes dependent on the manipulator for a sense of reality. Another powerful technique is mirroring, subtly mimicking another person's body language, tone, and speech patterns to create a false sense of connection. Studies have shown that people are more likely to trust and agree with someone who unconsciously reflects their behavior. What seems like natural chemistry is often a calculated move. Perhaps the most dangerous aspect of dark psychology is how effortlessly it blends into daily life. It does not require threats or coercion, just a deep understanding of human nature. Skilled manipulators do not force people to do what they want. They make people want to do it themselves. Once you recognize these tactics, you start seeing them everywhere. The question is, what can you do about it? How do you ensure that you are not just another pawn in someone else's game? The world is not controlled by those with the most money, intelligence, or physical strength. It is controlled by those who understand human psychology, the people who can influence, persuade, and manipulate without their targets ever realizing it. The ability to read minds is not just about knowing what someone is thinking. It is about using that knowledge to control outcomes. Throughout history, the most powerful figures have wielded psychology as a weapon. Julius Caesar, Napoleon Bonaparte, and even modern-day CEOs and politicians have mastered the art of influence. They understand a fundamental truth. People do not act based on logic. They act based on perception, and you control reality. One of the most effective psychological weapons is framing. This technique allows powerful individuals to shape the way people interpret information. If a leader wants to justify war, they do not simply declare it. They create an enemy, plant fear in the public mind, and present violence as the only solution. If a company wants to sell an overpriced product, they do not argue its merits. They manipulate perception, making it appear as a symbol of status or success. Consider the Milgram experiment conducted in the 1960s. Participants were instructed to administer what they believed were painful electric shocks to another person. Despite hearing screams of agony, many continued simply because an authority figure told them to. This experiment exposed a dark truth. Most people will obey commands, even if it means harming others, as long as the order comes from someone they perceive as powerful. This is why influential people cultivate an aura of authority. They use confidence, controlled body language, and a calculated tone to project dominance. Studies show that people are more likely to believe someone who speaks with certainty, even if that person is completely wrong. Another powerful psychological principle is reciprocity. If someone does you a favor, you feel obligated to return it. Skilled influencers exploit this by giving small gifts in advance. Whether it is a compliment, an act of kindness, or even a subtle sense of exclusivity, by the time they ask for something in return, refusal feels unnatural. These tactics are not limited to world leaders or corporations. They exist in everyday interactions. Charismatic individuals often use strategic silence, pausing at key moments to make others feel the need to fill the silence. This forces their target to reveal information or second-guess themselves. The true masters of psychology do not just react to situations, they shape them. They anticipate reactions, plant ideas, and direct conversations without making it obvious. They understand that control is not about force, it is about making people choose what you want them to choose. But power is a double-edged sword. Those who understand these principles can use them to build influence, gain respect, and protect themselves from being manipulated. However, those who remain unaware will always be at the mercy of those who do. So the question is, will you be the one controlled or the one in control? The key to true power is not just understanding these tactics, but knowing how to defend yourself against them. That is where the final lesson begins. Once you recognize the psychological techniques used to manipulate and control, the next step is learning how to protect yourself, and more importantly, how to develop an unshakable mind. True power is not just about reading others, it is about ensuring that no one else can read or control you. The first step to mental resilience is awareness. Most people go through life reacting to emotions and external influences without questioning where they come from. But when you start analyzing situations, asking yourself why you feel a certain way, why you are drawn to a particular idea, or why you suddenly trust someone without reason, you begin to take back control. Every emotion, every impulse has a source. Now find it, and you weaken its hold over you. One of the most effective psychological defenses is pattern disruption. Manipulators rely on predictability. They know how most people will react to certain words, emotions, or situations. But when you break patterns, responding in unexpected ways, pausing instead of reacting immediately, you disrupt their influence. Instead of arguing back when provoked, respond with silence. Instead of agreeing out of social pressure, ask questions that force the other person to clarify their position. When you refuse to follow the usual script, manipulators lose their advantage. Another key to reprogramming your mind is emotional control. People who are easily swayed by emotions, anger, fear, excitement, are the easiest to manipulate. This is why high-stakes negotiators, intelligence officers, and psychological warfare experts train themselves to remain calm under pressure. Before making any major decision, take a step back, breathe. Ask yourself if your choice is based on emotion or logic. The more you control your emotions, the less control others have over you. One of the most dangerous psychological traps is confirmation bias. People seek out information that aligns with what they already believe and ignore anything that contradicts it. This is why propaganda, cults, and even marketing are so effective. They reinforce what people want to hear. To develop true mental strength, you must challenge your own beliefs. Read opposing viewpoints. Consider the possibility that you might be wrong. The more flexible your mind, the harder it is to manipulate. A powerful exercise for strengthening mental resilience is detachment. Instead of immediately reacting to situations, train yourself to observe. When someone tries to manipulate you, recognize it for what it is, a strategy, not a personal attack. Imagine you are watching a scene in a movie, analyzing the motives of each character. This psychological distance allows you to think more clearly and respond more strategically. Finally, the most powerful defense is self-confidence. The easiest targets for manipulation are those who doubt themselves, who look to others for validation. When you trust your own judgment, when you know your own worth, outside influence loses its power. This is why master manipulators often start by breaking down their target's confidence, because an insecure mind is an easy mind to control. The world is filled with hidden forces, unseen influences, shaping thoughts and decisions. But now you see what most people do not. You recognize the patterns, the tactics, the psychological games at play. And because of that, you are no longer a pawn in someone else's strategy. The final question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you use it to shield yourself from manipulation, to gain influence, to navigate the world with clearer vision? The choice is yours. But remember, once you understand the language of the mind, you can never go back to ignorance. You are now a part of the few who see. For your entire life, you have been playing a game without knowing the rules. Every interaction, every decision, every belief you hold has been shaped by forces you never saw. Subtle cues, psychological triggers, and invisible patterns woven into the very fabric of your reality. But here's the unsettling truth. Nothing you think is entirely your own. The way you define success, the people you admire, the fears that keep you awake at night, all of them have been carefully planted by the world around you. From the moment you were born, you were conditioned by your parents, your culture, your government, and the media. You were trained to react a certain way, to trust authority without question, to believe that your choices were your own. But were they? Consider this. Studies have shown that up to 95% of human behavior is controlled by the subconscious mind. That means that most of what you do is not based on conscious thought, but on deeply embedded programming. The brands you are loyal to, the emotions that flood you in certain situations, even the way you perceive yourself, it is all part of a carefully constructed illusion. Think about how easy it is to make someone believe something false. In 2001, researchers conducted an experiment where participants were shown doctored photographs of childhood events that never actually happened. Despite this, many of them confidently remembered those experiences in vivid detail. Their minds had rewritten reality to fit the suggestion. If memories, something we believe to be the core of our identity, can be altered so easily, what does that say about everything else? You have been led to believe that mind reading is an extraordinary ability reserved for a select few. But the truth is, your mind has already been read every single day of your life. Corporations read your mind when they design advertisements tailored to your psychological profile. Politicians read your mind when they use carefully crafted words to sway public opinion. Even the algorithms that control your social media feed are reading your mind, learning your desires, shaping your thoughts without you realizing it. So what does this mean? Are we all just puppets, acting out a script written by unseen forces? Because now you hold the key to breaking free. Now that you see the patterns, you can disrupt them. Now that you recognize the tactics, you can resist them. Now that you understand how easily the mind can be influenced, you can take control of your own. Most people will never reach this level of awareness. They will continue to be swayed by illusions, convinced that they are in control when they are not. But you are different now. And once you open your eyes, there is no going back. The greatest trick ever played on humanity was making people believe their thoughts were entirely their own. But now you have seen the truth. You have glimpsed the hidden forces that shape decisions, control emotions, and manipulate reality itself. You have learned how mind reading is not magic, but psychology. You have uncovered the dark tactics used in marketing, politics, and relationships to guide choices without people realizing it. You now understand the power of influence, the psychology of control, and, most importantly, how to defend yourself against it. But knowledge alone is not enough. Real power comes from application. Every time you engage with the world from this moment forward, ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Who benefits from this belief? Am I choosing this, or has it been chosen for me? These questions will be your shield against manipulation. They will sharpen your perception and give you the ability to see beyond what is being presented. The more you train your mind to recognize hidden influences, the more control you will have over your own destiny. But there is another level to this knowledge, one that goes beyond defense. Those who truly master psychological principles do not just resist manipulation, they use them to shape their own reality. They understand persuasion, influence, and the art of reading people, not for deception, but for power. Because in a world where everyone is being influenced, those who see the game have an undeniable advantage. Now the choice is yours. Will you forget what you have learned today and slip back into unconscious influence? Or will you take this knowledge and use it to sharpen your mind, strengthen your awareness, and take control of your own thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever noticed these psychological tricks being used on you? Have you ever caught yourself being influenced without realizing it? Share your thoughts and let us continue uncovering the hidden truths of the mind. Because once you start seeing the world for what it truly is, you can never unsee it.